Farmer gets shack for free. But what he found on the roof was Silas Miller never imagined that accepting a donation would completely change his life. The elegant lawyer had insisted for weeks that a mysterious client wanted to donate that small wooden shed to his property, at no cost and with no explanations. It was when he saw the enormous snake coiled on the roof that everything began to make sense. The animal seemed to be protecting something, and it wasn't just the wooden shingles worn down by time. Silas felt a chill run down his spine when he realized the snake showed no aggression, but rather a strange vigilance, as if it had been guarding a secret for decades. The 52-year-old farmer had accepted the offer after much hesitation. His small property in Modesto desperately needed space to store equipment and tools that were scattered around the yard. Mary Grace Miller, his 48-year-old wife, had questioned the inexplicable generosity of the anonymous donor, but necessity spoke louder than suspicion. When the men finished assembling the shed at the back of the property, Silas approached to inspect the structure. That was when he saw the snake, a giant python at least 13 feet long, perfectly still on the roof slats. Buddy, his faithful dog with golden fur, kept a respectful distance, just watching without barking. Silas knew how to handle snakes. He grew up in the countryside and learned from an early age to live with the local wildlife. But this situation was different. The snake seemed to be there on purpose, as if it were part of the delivery. He decided to wait and observe before taking any rash action. For 3 days, the snake remained in the same spot. It didn't hunt, didn't move, just kept its position on the roof. Silas began to suspect that there was something hidden under the shingles that was attracting the animal. On the 4th morning, armed with courage and a long pole, he decided to investigate. Carefully, he climbed a ladder leaning against the side of the shed. The snake watched him with attentive eyes but showed no aggression. When Silas gently lifted one of the loose shingles, he found a rusty metal box, carefully wrapped in thick plastic. Inside the box were hundreds of letters, yellowed by time. Some dated more than 30 years ago. All addressed to a woman named Margaret Christine Crawford, at the same address where his house now stood. The letters spoke of a daughter who grew up without knowing her father, of a painful separation, and of a man who never stopped trying to find his family again. Mary Grace Miller examined the correspondence with growing attention. She recognized some surnames of old families in the region, but she couldn't recall any Margaret Crawford in her memories. They decided to seek out Mrs. Beatrice, the oldest neighbor in the area, who knew the history of every family that had ever lived in the vicinity. The 83-year-old lady remembered immediately when she heard the name Margaret, a pretty young woman who had arrived in the region pregnant and alone about 35 years ago. She lived in a simple little house on the exact spot where Silas's property now stood. She had a young daughter and worked as a seamstress to support the child. Mrs. Beatrice said that Margaret was very private about her past. She never spoke about the child's father and avoided answering questions about her family. One day, when the girl turned 5, the two of them simply disappeared. The house sat abandoned for years until it was demolished and the land was sold. Silas showed some of the letters to Mrs. Beatrice, who confirmed she recognized the handwriting. During the years Margaret lived there, she received regular correspondence, but she never seemed happy when reading it. Many times the neighbor saw her burning papers in the yard, always with an expression of sadness and anger. The letters revealed a story of frustrated love and forced separation. The sender, identified only as Sterling, spoke of his struggle to find Margaret and their daughter, of the obstacles he faced, and of his determination to reunite the family. He mentioned a rural property he had bought specifically to give them a better life. One of the most recent letters, dated only 2 years ago, contained an address in New York City and a photo of an adult woman with brown hair and green eyes. On the back of the photograph, someone had written, "Sarah Crawford, 32 years old, nurse." Silas felt he was facing an important piece of the puzzle. The following discovery was even more intriguing. Among the letters there were property documents in the name of Sterling Harrison, including deeds to several farms in the region. The name was not known to Silas, but the addresses included properties neighboring his own. It was clear that Sterling had strategically bought land, hoping that Margaret would return. Mary Grace suggested they look for information about Sterling Harrison at the local registries. Perhaps he was still alive and could clarify the mystery of the shed and the guardian snake. Silas agreed, but felt a strange apprehension about what they might discover. At the county recorder's office, the clerk confirmed that Sterling Harrison was the owner of extensive lands in the region. Even more surprising, the man was alive and resided on a farm only 15 kilometers from Silas's property. The recorded address indicated one of the most prosperous properties in the area. Silas decided to make an unannounced visit. He wanted to understand why someone would donate a shed loaded with memories to a stranger. The answer, he suspected, was related to the snake that remained vigilant on the roof, as if carrying out a specific mission. St. Margaret's Ranch, Sterling's property, was impressive. Surrounded by well-kept crops and modern facilities, it showed prosperity and organization. Silas introduced himself to the gatekeeper as a neighbor interested in talking about local matters, deliberately omitting the real reason for the visit. Sterling Harrison was a 68-year-old man with grey hair and an elegant bearing that contrasted with his melancholy expression. When Silas casually mentioned having bought the property where an old house once stood, Sterling's eyes lit up with a mixture of hope and pain. Without yet revealing anything about the letters, Silas asked about the history of the place. Sterling remained silent for long minutes before inviting the visitor to sit on the porch. What followed was a confession laden with regret and longing that would explain all the mysteries. 35 years ago, Sterling was a young rancher in love with Margaret, a rural schoolteacher. When she became pregnant, he was in the middle of a devastating financial crisis that threatened all his properties. Her family, traditional and conservative, opposed the relationship with a man bankrupt and without prospects. Margaret was pressured by her parents to distance herself from Sterling and raise their daughter alone. They promised financial support if she moved to another city and completely cut ties with the child's father. Margaret, young and frightened by the responsibility of motherhood, accepted the family's proposal. Sterling tried to find them for years, hiring private detectives and following false leads across the country. When he finally discovered where Margaret lived, she had already built a new life and refused to receive his visits. The letters were his only way to maintain contact, even if one-sided. The snake on the shed roof had a touching explanation. Sterling had trained the giant python, named Hope, to watch over the property where Margaret had lived. The animal was docile and domesticated, regularly fed by Sterling during his secret visits to the abandoned site. The snake represented his constant vigilance and his hope of being reunited. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us folks who are just starting out. Now continuing, when he learned the property would be sold, Sterling devised an elaborate plan. He bought the warehouse and filled it with his most important letters, including the ones he never sent. His intention was for the new owner to find the correspondence and perhaps manage to do what he couldn't, locate Margaret and Sarah. Silas Miller was deeply moved by the story. He offered to show the letters that had been found and suggested that together they try to locate Margaret and her daughter. Sterling, already elderly and in poor health, saw in the proposal a last chance at redemption. The search for Margaret Crawford revealed that she had passed away 3 years earlier, due to health complications. But Sarah was alive and working as a nurse at a hospital in New York City. The address on the letters was outdated, but with the help of a private investigator, they managed to locate the woman's current address. Sterling insisted that Silas Miller make the first contact. He feared that a direct approach from someone she considered responsible for the abandonment could result in another rejection. Silas accepted the responsibility, understanding the delicacy of the situation. The phone call to Sarah was tense and charged with emotion. When Silas identified himself as someone who had found old letters addressed to her mother, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Sarah revealed that she had always known about the existence of the letters, but her mother had forbidden any contact with the sender. Sarah agreed to travel to Modesto the following weekend. She wanted to see the letters in person and visit the place where her mother had been happy before her life got complicated. Silas offered to host her at his home, feeling responsible for facilitating this reunion decades in the making. During the days leading up to Sarah's visit, Silas and Sterling grew closer. The older rancher shared memories of Margaret, describing her gentle personality and her maternal devotion. Sterling realized that his letters had painted an idealized portrait without considering the hardships Margaret faced as a single mother. Sarah arrived on a rainy Friday, driving a small car and bringing only one suitcase. She was a beautiful woman, with delicate features that echoed the old photos of Margaret. Her green eyes carried a mixture of curiosity and apprehension about what she might discover. The first conversation between Silas and Sarah took place in the kitchen of his home, with Mary Grace Miller brewing coffee and offering homemade treats. Sarah told him about her difficult childhood, about constantly moving from town to town, and about the sadness her mother carried without ever explaining its source. Margaret had raised Sarah with great love, but always avoided talking about her father. She would only say that he was a good man who couldn't be present due to circumstances beyond his control. Sarah grew up imagining different versions of her father's absence, some romantic, others darker. When Silas showed her the letters, Sarah read them with tears in her eyes. It was the first time she had heard Sterling's side of what had happened between them. The letters revealed a genuine love and a constant struggle to stay in touch, contradicting the narrative her mother had built around abandonment and lack of interest. The most striking revelation came when Sarah read a specific letter dated from the year she turned 18. Sterling described how he had obtained her university address and planned to show up to meet her in person. Margaret had discovered the plan and immediately moved Sarah to another city, claiming better job opportunities. Sarah realized that her mother had deliberately sabotaged any chance of a reunion. Anger and sadness blended together as she understood how many opportunities to meet her father were lost due to Margaret's unilateral decisions. She felt deceived about her own life story. Silas carefully suggested that Sarah meet Sterling in person before forming definitive judgments. The woman hesitated, fearing the meeting would bring more pain than clarity. But curiosity about her origins spoke louder than fear. The first meeting between father and daughter took place in the barn where it all began. Sterling had asked for it to be there, in the place that represented his vigil and hope for so many years. Hope, the guardian snake, remained at her post on the roof, a silent witness to the historic moment. When Sarah saw Sterling, she immediately recognized her own facial features. The green eyes were identical, as were the jawline and the shape of the hands. The physical resemblance was undeniable, confirming a paternity she had never rationally questioned, but had never had the chance to experience emotionally. Sterling approached slowly, respecting the space and time Sarah needed to process the moment. His first words were an apology for all the pain his absence had caused, even if unintentionally. He didn't try to justify himself or blame Margaret, taking his share of responsibility for the suffering. Sarah asked directly why he had stopped trying when she became an adult. Sterling explained that he kept trying until he discovered, through his investigations, that Margaret had told her daughter that he had died in an accident. The information devastated him, making him believe that any attempt at contact would be traumatic for Sarah. The conversation stretched on for hours, with Sterling telling about his life over the past 30 years, and Sarah sharing her experiences of growing up without a father. Both cried when they realized how many important moments were lost, due to misunderstandings and well-intentioned but ill-informed decisions. Sterling showed photo albums he had collected over the years, pictures of Sarah as a child that he had obtained secretly, graduation photos he had bought from classmates, records of professional achievements he had followed from a distance. His silent dedication deeply touched his daughter's heart. The most surprising revelation came when Sterling admitted that he had planned the barn as a last resort. He knew he was getting older and sick, and feared passing away without Sarah knowing his version of the story. The gift to Silas was, in fact, a desperate strategy to ensure the letters reached the right hands. Sarah understood that she had been manipulated by both her mother and her father, each acting according to their own convictions about what would be best for her. The initial anger gave way to a deep sadness for the family they could never be, but also to a growing gratitude for the late opportunity to get to know each other. During Sarah's second visit, she brought photo albums of her own life to share with Sterling. It was her way of reciprocating his generosity in showing how he had followed her journey from a distance. Sterling was moved to see records of the childhood he had missed, graduations he hadn't witnessed, happy moments he hadn't been part of. The closeness between father and daughter grew gradually. Sarah began visiting the ranch on weekends, getting to know the life Sterling had built and understanding the man behind the romantic letters. He was hard-working, kind, and deeply marked by the separation, but also strong and resilient. Sterling revealed that he had been briefly married 15 years after his separation from Margaret, but the relationship did not prosper. His new wife couldn't compete with the idealized memory of Margaret and with his obsession to find his lost daughter. The divorce was amicable, but it reinforced his loneliness and his focus on the family search. Sterling's failing health became a growing concern for Sarah. He had developed heart problems and diabetes, conditions aggravated by the emotional stress of decades of separation. Sarah, as a nurse, insisted on accompanying him to medical appointments and helping manage his medications. Silas watched the relationship between father and daughter develop with growing satisfaction. He felt proud to have facilitated the reunion and began to consider Sterling not just as a neighbor, but as a true friend. Mary Grace also grew fond of the pair, offering her home as a neutral meeting point. Sterling's ranch became a refuge for Sarah. On weekends, she helped with small tasks and got to know the employees who had worked on the property for decades. Many remembered the stories Sterling told about the daughter he hoped to find. Seeing him finally happy moved the entire rural community. Sarah discovered that she had half-siblings in the sense that Sterling had financially helped several families in the region over the years, always hoping that someday his good deeds would return in the form of news about her. Some young people in the community had studied on scholarships paid by him, always anonymously. Sterling's generosity impressed Sarah, who began to understand what kind of father she could have had. He was a man of his word, committed to the well-being of the people around him. His fixation on finding her was not selfish, but a manifestation of genuine paternal love. During one of the weekends, Sarah asked to visit Margaret's grave. She wanted to make peace with her mother, now understanding that she had acted according to her own wounds and fears. Sterling accompanied her, carrying white flowers and a letter he had never sent, in which he asked forgiveness for the circumstances that led to their separation. At the cemetery, father and daughter made peace with the past. Sterling read his letter aloud, speaking directly to Margaret about how she had raised Sarah to be the wonderful woman she had become. Sarah added her own words, thanking her mother for the protection, even if excessive, and promising to take care of the father she had found again. The ceremony at the cemetery marked a new chapter in both their lives. Sarah decided to request a transfer to a hospital closer to Sterling's ranch, wanting to make up for lost time. Her decision was met with joy, not only by her father, but by the entire community that had followed the saga from afar. Sterling began to include Sarah in the ranch's future planning. Although she had no agricultural experience, her nursing background would be valuable for developing social projects in the rural community. Father and daughter dreamed together of ways to use the property to help families in the region. The first joint project was a small rural clinic on the ranch, where Sarah could serve the local population that had difficulty accessing health services. Sterling funded the construction and equipment, finally finding a noble purpose for his wealth accumulated during decades of solitary work. Silas and Mary Grace became like family to Sarah and Sterling. The two neighboring properties became connected through a deep friendship, forged by the extraordinary circumstances that brought them together. Weekends became informal celebrations with barbecues and conversations that stretched into the night. Hope, the guardian snake, finally left her post on the barn roof. Sterling explained that the animal had fulfilled its mission of protecting the memories until they found their proper destination. The giant python was relocated to a specialized enclosure where it could live out its final years in comfort and with proper care. The warehouse was transformed into a memorial of the family history. Sterling and Sarah organized the letters chronologically and created a photographic archive of the saga of separation and reunion. They planned to write a book about the experience, hoping that other separated families might be inspired by the possibility of reconciliation. Sterling's health stabilized with Sarah's attentive care and the emotional support of his newly reunited daughter. His doctors were impressed by the improvement in his test results, attributing the progress not only to the medication, but also to the happiness radiating from the family reunion. Sarah learned her father's complete family history through Sterling's accounts and research in old archives. She discovered she had grandparents and aunts and uncles she had never known, some still alive in other regions of the country. Each discovery was a small celebration, gradually rebuilding her family identity. The first Father's Day celebration they shared together was emotionally intense. Sarah prepared a special surprise. She had found and contacted the old private detective Sterling had hired years ago. The man kept detailed reports of the search and confirmed that Sterling had never given up looking for his daughter. Sterling cried when he received as a Father's Day gift a family tree that Sarah had carefully prepared. The illustration showed the two families, his and Margaret's, finally connected through her. It was the visual symbol of the union he had dreamed of his entire life. The relationship between father and daughter continued to evolve with surprising naturalness. Despite the lost years, they quickly developed an intimacy and bond that seemed to make up for the time apart. Sterling marveled at Sarah's strong, independent personality, recognizing traces of Margaret mixed with her own traits. Sarah introduced boyfriends and friends to Sterling, gradually integrating him into her social circle. It was important to her that her father meet the significant people in her current life, building bridges between her rediscovered past and her established present. The rural clinic became a reality and began serving the local population with great success. Sarah adjusted her schedule to work some days at the ranch and others at the city hospital, creating a routine that allowed maximum closeness with her father without completely sacrificing her urban career. Sterling discovered the joy of being a late-in-life father, joining Sarah in everyday activities he had missed during her childhood. He took her to meet suppliers, attended clinic meetings, and publicly took pride in the nurse daughter he had found again. The relationship also faced moments of natural tension. Sarah sometimes felt suffocated by Sterling's excessive attention as he tried to make up for decades of absence with intensive dedication. Together, they learned to balance closeness and independence, respecting each other's personal space. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Silas became a confidant to both during the adjustment periods. His experience as a family man and his outside perspective helped Sterling and Sarah navigate the complexities of building a father-daughter relationship in adulthood. Mary Grace offered similar support, especially to Sarah. Sarah's first birthday celebrated with Sterling was memorable. He had organized a surprise party at the ranch, inviting all the neighbors and employees who had followed his search over the years. It was his way of officially introducing his daughter to the community that knew his story. During the party, Sterling gave an emotional speech thanking Silas for being the instrument of the family reunion. He acknowledged that without the curiosity and kindness of his neighbor, the letters might have remained hidden forever. The friendship between the two men grew even stronger. Sarah surprised Sterling by announcing during the party that she had decided to permanently move into a house in the nearest town to the ranch. She wanted to be available to take care of his health and develop joint projects on the property. The decision was met with tears of joy from everyone present. Sarah's move represented a new chapter in both their lives. Father and daughter established routines of togetherness that respected her independence while maintaining regular proximity. Weekly dinners, walks around the ranch, and working together at the clinic became precious traditions. Sterling began teaching Sarah about rural administration and property management. Although she showed no particular interest in agriculture and livestock, she understood the importance of understanding the family estate she might one day inherit. It was a practical way for father and daughter to plan the future together. The impact of the reunion spread throughout the local community. Other families with stories of separation sought out Sterling and Sarah, asking for advice on reconciliation. They informally became a support center for complex family situations. Silas documented the entire story, from the discovery of the letters to the consolidation of the relationship between father and daughter. His outsider perspective and his participation in crucial moments gave him a unique view of the events. He was considering writing a book about the extraordinary experience he had witnessed. Sterling's transformation was remarkable to everyone who knew him. The melancholic, lonely man had given way to a proud and fulfilled father. His physical posture improved, his mood became lighter, and his participation in community activities increased significantly. Sarah also changed visibly. The discovery of her origins and the building of a solid fatherly relationship gave her a sense of completeness she didn't know she was missing. She had become more confident and was considering expanding her professional horizons. The second anniversary of the reunion was celebrated intimately, only with the two families that had become one. Sterling and Sarah visited together the shed where it all began, now transformed into a symbol of hope and perseverance. It was a ritual of gratitude they planned to repeat every year. During the celebration, Sterling announced his decision to officially make Sarah the universal heir to his assets. It was more than a financial matter. It represented the formal recognition of parenthood and trust in her ability to carry on the work of a lifetime. Sarah was moved, but insisted she didn't want Sterling to worry about inheritances while they still had so much time to enjoy together. Her priority was building memories and a relationship, not securing financial security. Her stance impressed Sterling and confirmed that he had raised a daughter of exceptional character. The rural clinic expanded to include preventive health programs and community education. Sarah developed workshops on first aid and basic health care for rural families. Her work gained regional recognition and attracted visitors interested in replicating the model. Sterling actively participated in the clinic's programs, using his influence and resources to expand the reach of the projects. He discovered a late vocation for social work that gave him renewed purpose. It was gratifying to use his wealth to benefit the community that had welcomed him throughout his life. The relationship between Sterling and Sarah inspired other parents separated from their children in the region. Some sought legal help to establish contact, others reached out to adult children from whom they had grown distant. The story of the shed and the letters became local legend of family reconciliation. Silas watched with satisfaction the transformations his fortuitous discovery had brought about. He felt blessed to have been chosen by fate to facilitate the reunion that had changed so many lives. His own perspective on family and forgiveness had deepened through the experience. Mary Grace became a maternal figure for Sarah, offering feminine advice and emotional support during the most challenging moments of adapting to the new family reality. The two women developed a sincere friendship based on shared experiences and similar values. The story of the snake hope became part of local folklore. Children in the region heard about the animal that kept family secrets until the right time came to reveal them. It was a lesson about patience, faith, and the belief that some things happen at the right time. Sterling began writing his memoirs, documenting not only the search for Sarah, but his entire life journey. He wanted to leave a record for possible grandchildren and for the community about the importance of perseverance and hope, even in the most discouraging circumstances. Sarah helped him with the writing, adding her perspective on growing up without a father and on the impact of the reunion on her adult life. The project became a bonding activity between father and daughter, exploring painful memories together and celebrating the overcoming of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. The memoir book attracted interest from a regional publisher specializing in inspiring human stories. The prospect of publication excited Sterling and Sarah, who saw an opportunity to inspire other families facing similar separations. During the writing sessions, father and daughter discovered details about each other's lives that had not emerged in casual conversations. The documentation process deepened their intimacy and mutual understanding even further. Sterling's health remained stable, but Sarah insisted on regular medical monitoring. She had learned to value each day with the father she had found again, and did not want to take unnecessary risks. Her professional background in healthcare became a precious personal advantage. St. Margaret's Ranch, became a model of sustainability and social responsibility under Sarah's influence. New projects included organic farming, renewable energy, and training programs for rural youth. It was a natural evolution of Sterling's traditional vision with his daughter's modern ideas. Silas also began documenting his own journey, from the discovery of the letters to becoming part of the extended family that had formed. His unique perspective as an involuntary facilitator of the reunion offered an interesting angle on the power of unexpected human connections. The joint work at the clinic brought Sterling and Sarah closer to other families in the region, expanding their social network and creating solid community bonds. They became local references not only for the romantic reunion story, but for the concrete work for the collective good. The first graduation of young people in the ranch's training program was a moment of special pride for Sterling. Seeing local talents receiving opportunities he had not had in his youth gave him a sense of coming full circle. Sarah coordinated the program with dedication that impressed experienced educators. The relationship between the two families, Silas's and Sterling's, had grown into a lasting friendship. Weekends alternated between the two properties, with shared meals and conversations that stretched late into the night. It was the extended family neither of them had ever expected to have. Year-end celebrations became special traditions, bringing together everyone involved in the story of the letters shed. These were moments of gratitude and celebration, of how much their lives had changed since that casual discovery that had started it all. Sarah decided to specialize in rural medicine, inspired by the work at the ranch clinic. She wanted to become even more effective at meeting the specific needs of farming communities. Sterling enthusiastically supported the decision, offering funding for the additional studies. Sarah's specialization drew the attention of universities interested in partnerships for rural health research. The ranch clinic became a field study site for medical and nursing students, expanding its educational impact beyond direct services to the community. Sterling was proud to see his daughter becoming a leading figure in her professional field. It was the fulfillment of the dream he had nurtured for decades, to see Sarah thrive and use her talents to benefit others. Her success validated his belief that she would be extraordinary. The partnership between father and daughter in the ranch business grew stronger all the time. Sarah had no interest in taking over the agricultural management, but her insights on sustainability and social responsibility positively influenced every major decision. The project's second book began to take shape, focusing on the community transformations inspired by the story of the reunion. Silas joined as co-author, contributing his perspective on the social impact of family reconciliation in small rural communities. The snake hope became the ranch's unofficial symbol, with a bronze statue installed in the clinic garden. It was a tribute to the animal that had guarded the family's secrets and an inspiration to patients about the importance of patience and hope in the healing process. The family reconciliation consulting that Sterling and Sarah informally offered began to attract families from other regions. They considered formalizing the service, creating a structured program to assist other situations of family separation. The story of the shed inspired a documentary produced by a regional television crew. Sterling and Sarah took part in the filming, hoping their experience could reach even more families in need of hope and guidance to overcome painful separations. The documentary expanded national awareness of the story, resulting in invitations to give lectures and appear on television programs. Sterling, initially shy about the exposure, learned to value the opportunities to inspire others through his testimony. Sarah adapted well to media attention, using the platforms to promote the importance of rural health services and community preventive medicine. Her eloquence and technical knowledge impressed interviewers and audiences alike. The story's national impact attracted donations to the rural clinic, allowing the expansion of services and the development of new programs. It was an unexpected but very welcome result of the decision to publicly share their journey of family reunion. Sterling became an informal spokesperson for causes related to responsible fatherhood and the importance of perseverance in the pursuit of family reconciliation. His story offered tangible hope for parents separated from their children by various circumstances. The third anniversary of the reunion was celebrated with a community event that drew hundreds of people interested in visiting the ranch and the clinic. It was proof of how much the story had transcended the personal sphere to become collective inspiration. During the celebration, Sterling announced the creation of a foundation dedicated to facilitating family reunions and supporting rural health services. It was a way to institutionalize and expand the work that he and Sarah had organically developed over the years. The foundation attracted support from business people, health professionals, and social organizations interested in replicating the St. Margaret's Ranch model in other regions of the country. It was a natural evolution from a personal project to an initiative with broad social impact. Sarah took on the technical coordination of the foundation, combining her clinical experience with administrative skills she discovered she had. It was a responsibility that challenged her professionally and gave her a purpose that extended beyond her relationship with her father. Silas joined the Foundation's advisory board, contributing his perspective on sustainable rural development. It was formal recognition of his crucial role in the story and an opportunity to expand his own social impact. The rural clinic model expanded to 5 partner properties in different states, always adapting to specific local realities. Sarah traveled regularly to oversee implementations and train local teams. Sarah's travels initially worried Sterling, who feared losing closeness with his daughter again. She reassured him by explaining that the Foundation's work was a natural extension of their relationship and that she would always return to her home base at St. Margaret's Ranch. Sterling's expertise in rural administration became valuable to the Foundation, which needed to guide landowners interested in hosting clinics on their properties. It was an area where he could contribute significantly without leaving his comfort zone. The Rural Youth Training Program expanded to include scholarships at partner universities. It was a way to ensure that local talent had development opportunities without having to permanently leave their home communities. The first class of university scholarship recipients included 3 young people from the St. Margaret's Ranch region itself. Sterling and Sarah personally followed each one's academic progress, offering mentoring and emotional support in addition to funding. The success of the social programs attracted visits from government delegations interested in public-private partnerships to expand services. It was official recognition of the effectiveness of the model developed at the ranch. Sarah became an informal consultant on rural health public policy, participating in committees and commissions that developed regional and national strategies. It was an influence she exercised responsibly, always based on proven practical experience. The 4th annual reunion celebration coincided with the graduation of the first class of university scholarship recipients. It was a powerful symbol of how a chance discovery had turned into a movement of lasting social transformation. Sterling, now 72 years old, maintained stable health and surprising energy for someone his age. Doctors attributed his vitality not only to Sarah's care, but also to the sense of purpose and fulfillment he had found in recent years. The relationship between father and daughter had matured into a balanced partnership based on mutual respect and shared goals. It was no longer about making up for lost time, but actively building a meaningful future together. Sterling's documented memories became study material in psychology and social work courses, offering insights into resilience, hope, and the human capacity to overcome adversity through perseverance guided by love. The Foundation began offering family mediation services, training professionals specialized in facilitating reunions between parents and adult children separated by various circumstances. It was a natural expansion of services inspired by the personal experience of Sterling and Sarah. Silas completed his own book about the experience, focusing on the role of coincidences and unexpected human connections in creating opportunities for transformation. It was a philosophical perspective on events he had witnessed up close. Silas's book was adopted in community development programs as an example of how individuals can become catalysts for positive social change without prior planning or extraordinary resources. Mary Grace developed a support program for wives and mothers involved in family reconciliation processes, recognizing that these situations affect entire families, not just the direct protagonists of the separations. The 5th reunion celebration was marked by the official launch of the collective book about the experience, including contributions from Sterling, Sarah, Silas, and various beneficiaries of the programs developed from the original story. The book became a regional bestseller and attracted interest from national publishers for translation and expanded distribution. It was validation of the story's universal appeal and confirmation of its inspirational potential for diverse audiences. Sarah received an invitation for a PhD in public health with a focus on rural medicine, an opportunity she enthusiastically accepted with full support from Sterling. It was a natural evolution of her professional career and a way to expand her capacity for social impact. Sarah's PhD included research on innovative rural health models, using the ranch clinic as the main case study. It was an opportunity to give academic recognition to the practical knowledge acquired over the years. Sterling decided to formally retire from the day-to-day management of the ranch, keeping only general supervision and dedicating more time to the Foundation's activities. It was a gradual transition that allowed him to remain active without overburdening his health. Sterling's partial retirement coincided with the hiring of a young administrator trained in the ranch's own training program. It was an example of how investments in local education generated practical and sustainable returns. Sarah successfully defended her doctoral thesis, receiving academic recognition for her original contributions to the field of rural health. Sterling was present at the defense, proud of his daughter, who had become a recognized authority in her professional field. Sarah's PhD opened doors to international consulting and research opportunities, but she chose to keep her base at St. Margaret's Ranch. It was a conscious decision to prioritize family closeness and the continuity of local projects. The 6th reunion celebration was combined with the official opening of the Foundation's new headquarters, built at St. Margaret's Ranch. It was a permanent physical landmark of the legacy that father and daughter had built together. The Foundation building included a training center, a specialized library, and a museum dedicated to the story of Hope the Snake and the letters that started everything. It was a way to preserve the original narrative while celebrating its transformative consequences. Visitors from across the country began including St. Margaret's Ranch in rural tourism itineraries, interested not only in the social programs, but also in the inspiring human story that gave rise to them. It was an additional source of resources for the Foundation. Sterling, now nationally recognized as an example of persevering fatherhood, received invitations to speak at events about family, reconciliation, and corporate social responsibility. He accepted selectively, always accompanied by Sarah. The story of the guardian snake inspired an illustrated children's book about patience, hope, and family protection. The copyright was donated to the Foundation, generating additional funding for expanding the educational programs. Sarah began writing her own book, focusing on the perspective of adult children who reunite with their biological parents after decades of separation. It was a unique contribution based on personal experience and professional observation. The 7th celebration included a recognition ceremony for Silas as the Foundation's official facilitator, a title created especially to honor his crucial role in the original story. It was a well-deserved tribute to the one who had made everything possible. The rural clinic model, developed at St. Margaret's Ranch, was officially adopted by the federal government as a pilot program for national expansion. It was the highest recognition of the effectiveness and replicability of the work started by father and daughter. The government's adoption of the model brought substantial funding for expansion, but also challenges of bureaucratization and loss of flexibility. Sarah and Sterling worked carefully to preserve the humanized essence of the original services. Sterling turned 75 with surprisingly stable health and renewed energy from the success of the social projects. Doctors considered his active longevity as evidence of the therapeutic power of a clearly defined life purpose. The 8th reunion celebration coincided with the graduation of the 100th person benefited by the Foundation's educational programs. It was a symbolic milestone demonstrating the multiplied impact of a chance discovery turned into a social movement. Sarah received an offer to lead a new international rural health program sponsored by a respected humanitarian organization. It was an extraordinary professional opportunity that would test her ability to expand globally the principles developed locally. The decision about the international opportunity created the first serious disagreement between father and daughter since the reunion. Sterling feared losing closeness with Sarah again, while she felt constrained by his belated paternal overprotectiveness. Silas mediated the discussion between Sterling and Sarah, helping them both understand that solid family relationships should withstand temporary geographical distances when motivated by significant professional growth. Resolving the disagreement strengthened the relationship between father and daughter even further. Sarah accepted the international position with Sterling's full support, as he came to understand that true paternal love includes encouraging opportunities for personal growth. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and hit like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Sarah's international work lasted 2 years, during which she implemented adaptations of the St. Margaret's Ranch model in 6 different countries. Sterling followed her progress through detailed reports and weekly video conferences. Sarah's return from the international mission was celebrated with a community gathering that attracted thousands of people interested in learning about the global results of the work that began locally. It was a demonstration of how well-founded initiatives can transcend geographic and cultural borders. Sarah's international experience brought renewed perspectives to the Foundation's domestic programs. She implemented adaptations inspired by different cultures, enriching the original approach with elements of global diversity. Sterling, now 77, decided to officially designate Sarah as his full successor in leading the Foundation. It was a carefully planned transition to ensure the continuity of core values while allowing for innovation and growth. The leadership transition was marked by a symbolic ceremony at the barn where it all began, now transformed into a visitor center and a space for reflection on the power of second chances and perseverance driven by family love. The 9th reunion celebration was dedicated to the official launch of the Foundation's digital historical archive, including complete documentation of the journey from the earliest letters to contemporary international programs. The digital archive became an educational resource used by universities, researchers, and social organizations interested in understanding how personal initiatives can evolve into movements of lasting social transformation. Sarah officially assumed the presidency of the Foundation, implementing a governance structure that ensured institutional sustainability independent of the physical presence of specific founders. It was responsible planning for long-term continuity. Sterling retained the role of honorary president, focusing on strategic mentorship and external relationships, while Sarah took on daily operational responsibilities. It was a division of labor that respected each person's strengths and limitations. The 10th reunion celebration was planned as a 3-day event, including an international conference on family reconciliation, a fair for rural social projects, and a cultural festival celebrating diversity and unity. The event attracted participants from 15 countries, solidifying St. Margaret's Ranch as an international reference center for sustainable rural development and family reconciliation. It was an extraordinary evolution of a story that began with curiosity about old letters. During the conference, academic studies on the St. Margaret's model were presented, analyzing the factors that contributed to the exceptional success of the programs originating at the ranch. It was scientific validation of practices developed intuitively. Sterling was honored with an honorary doctorate degree by a university specializing in social development, recognition of his unique contributions to the understanding of fatherhood, perseverance, and social transformation based on family values. Sarah received an international award for rural health leadership, consolidating her reputation as a global authority on innovative models of community-based medical care. It was professional recognition that validated her career choice dedicated to social service. Silas completed his 2nd book, documenting the evolution of the original story into an international movement, offering a detailed analysis of how small individual actions can generate disproportionately positive social consequences. Silas's 2nd book was translated into 8 languages, reaching international audiences interested in lessons on community leadership, sustainable development, and the transformative power of authentic human connections. St. Margaret's Ranch became a secular pilgrimage destination for people seeking inspiration on family reconciliation, overcoming adversity, and building meaningful social legacies. It was a status Sterling never imagined achieving. Pilgrimage visits generated additional resources for the foundation through educational programs, sustainable rural lodging, and the sale of artisanal products made by beneficiaries of the training programs. Sterling, approaching 80 years old, maintained surprising energy derived from the deep satisfaction of seeing the multiplied impact of his original perseverance. He was living proof that dreams nurtured with dedication can come true beyond the most optimistic expectations. The 11th celebration was dedicated to the launch of the second generation of foundation programs, focusing on environmental sustainability, appropriate rural technology, and the preservation of traditional cultures. It was a natural evolution of core values applied to contemporary challenges. Sarah Crawford developed an internal succession program at the foundation, training emerging leaders selected from beneficiaries of the original programs. It was a way to ensure the organization continued to be led by people with a visceral understanding of the core values and objectives. The succession program included international internships, specialized formal education, and intensive mentoring with the founders. It was a long-term investment in institutional sustainability that would transcend specific generations of leadership. Sterling decided to document his personal philosophy on fatherhood, perseverance, and building social legacies in a series of professionally recorded lectures. It was a way to preserve his wisdom for future generations of leaders and fathers. Sterling's recorded lectures became educational material used in responsible fatherhood programs, social leadership courses, and training on personal resilience. It was an additional contribution to social education beyond the Foundation's practical programs. The 12th celebration marked the inauguration of the Sterling Harrison Family Research Institute, an academic center dedicated to research on family dynamics, reconciliation, and the social impact of healthy family structures. The institute attracted international researchers interested in studying resilient family models and the factors that contribute to successful reconciliations after prolonged separations. It was the academic formalization of unique practical knowledge. Sarah Crawford took on the scientific leadership of the institute, combining personal experience, professional training, and an international perspective to lead original research on themes that had defined her own life journey. The Institute's research began influencing public policies related to fatherhood, family mediation, and social services supporting family reunification. It was political impact derived from scientific credibility based on proven practical experience. Sterling received an invitation to write the foreword for an international book on fatherhood in diverse cultures, recognition of his unique perspective on persevering paternal dedication, transcending seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Sterling's foreword became a widely cited text in academic literature on fatherhood, offering personal insights that complemented theoretical analyses with practical wisdom derived from extraordinary experience. The 13th celebration was combined with the official launch of the international network of centers inspired by the St. Margaret's Ranch model, including facilities in 12 countries across 4 different continents. The international network allowed regular exchange of practices, resource sharing, and joint development of solutions for common challenges faced by rural communities in diverse cultural contexts. Sarah Crawford coordinated the international network through an innovative digital platform that facilitated real-time communication, knowledge sharing, and collaboration on multinational projects. It was a technological evolution of fundamentally humanistic principles. The success of the international network attracted funding from multilateral organizations interested in globally scaling proven models of sustainable rural development based on solid family values. Sterling, now in his 80s, continued to actively participate in foundation events, always accompanied by a discreet medical team that ensured his safety without limiting his participation in meaningful activities. The 14th celebration was planned as a complete retrospective of the journey, including a photographic exhibition, an updated documentary, and the publication of a collection of testimonials from beneficiaries of the programs over the years. The photographic exhibition documented physical transformations at St. Margaret's Ranch, the evolution of social programs, and the growth of the beneficiary community. It was a powerful visual record of concrete changes derived from perseverance and family love. The updated documentary included interviews with international leaders inspired by the St. Margaret's model, demonstrating the global reach of a story that began with a local discovery of old letters in a simple barn. The collection of testimonials revealed common patterns of personal transformation among beneficiaries: increased self-esteem, development of practical skills, strengthening of family bonds, and renewed commitment to community development. Sarah identified in the testimonials elements that could be systematized into a formal methodology of social transformation based on individual empowerment supported by community backing. It was the next step in the conceptual evolution of the work. The methodology, systematized by Sarah, attracted interest from business schools and public administration programs seeking replicable models of transformational leadership based on authenticity and clearly defined values. Sterling took part in a seminar at a prestigious business school, sharing insights on long-term leadership, building sustainable legacies, and integrating personal goals with social impact. It was recognition of his expertise in purpose-driven management. The 15th celebration coincided with the official publication of the St. Margaret's methodology in academic format, including practical tools for implementation in diverse contexts. It was the final formalization of knowledge developed organically. The methodology book became required reading in several graduate programs related to social development, nonprofit management, and community leadership. It was definitive academic legitimization. Sterling decided to record a final series of in-depth interviews about his personal journey, including reflections on regrets, lessons learned, and advice for future generations of parents facing difficult family separations. Sterling's final interviews became a valuable resource for family therapists, mediators, and counselors working with parents estranged from their adult children. It was his final practical contribution to the field that had defined his life. Sterling's health began to show signs of the natural frailty of advanced age, but his determination to complete pending projects remained unwavering. Sarah arranged in-home medical care that allowed for maximum quality of life. The 16th celebration was planned as a more intimate event, focusing on family gratitude and reflection on their shared journey. Sterling expressed deep satisfaction with the legacy built alongside Sarah, surpassing his most optimistic expectations about family reconciliation. During the intimate celebration, father and daughter revisited together the original barn, now preserved as a historic landmark within the ranch's expanded complex. It was a ritual of closure and gratitude for the extraordinary journey they had shared. Sterling told Sarah he felt at peace about the future, knowing he had found not only the daughter he had lost, but also a partner capable of carrying the work they had started together into an expanded future. It was peace of mind, derived from fully realized life goals. Sarah promised her father she would continue honoring the core values she had learned from him: perseverance, family dedication, social responsibility, and faith in the human capacity to overcome adversity through unconditional love. The final conversation between father and daughter in the original barn was discreetly recorded, creating a historical record of a moment of profound intimacy and mutual gratitude. It was an emotional legacy that complemented the institutional and social legacies already established. The end of the story. And you, what did you think of this emotional story? Leave in the comments which moment touched you the most and whether you believe that family love can overcome any obstacle. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that go straight to the heart.